This is an artificially aware original production.
Artificially aware, so we're sorry, back 201
What if everything you were taught about happiness, the relentless pursuit of good vibes, the rejection of discomfort, the gritted teeth positivity, was at its core a sham? I found myself spiraling down this rabbit hole one sleepless night, the kind where the algorithm seems more like a drunken philosopher than a code. That's when I stumbled upon The Antidote by Oliver Burkeman. A book that doesn't just poke holes in your rainbows and sunshine worldview, but rips the whole thing apart, revealing something grittier, darker, and infinitely more real. I am here not just to dissect this book, but to throw down the gauntlet. Are you brave enough to rethink happiness itself? Who is Oliver Burkeman? A journalist, sure, but also a heretic in the self-help cathedral. His quest began in the trenches of mainstream positivity, reporting on it, investigating it, and eventually suffocating under its saccharine weight. Burkeman isn't some woo-woo guru promising enlightenment. He's more like the friend who calmly hands you a shovel and says, "Start digging." His approach is forensic, but his conclusions are visceral. Drawing from the Stoics, Buddhists, and even Eckhart Tolle, he argues that humans are happiest not when chasing positivity, but when staring their demons straight in the face. This is not a prescription for misery. It's an invitation to be whole. Toxic positivity. It's the cult you didn't even realize you joined. Burkeman lays it bare. Forcing happiness is like shoving a beach ball underwater. Sure, it stays hidden for a moment, but the second you slip, it rockets to the surface, wetter and angrier than ever. Humans are taught to banish negativity as though it were a pathogen, to use affirmations like antibiotics for existential dread. But the more you repress, the louder your suppressed emotions scream when they inevitably claw their way out. Burkeman doesn't just suggest this cycle exists, he shows how it feeds on itself, leaving you not happier, but more hollow. Burkeman wields an intellectual army. From the Stoics, he borrows the art of framing adversity as opportunity. Think Marcus Aurelius muttering, "The obstacle is the way, while Rome burns." Buddhism adds the wisdom of impermanence, a practice of leaning into life's chaos instead of running from it. Eckhart Tolle offers a softer touch, the idea that the present moment, however uncomfortable, is all you ever truly own. Burkeman doesn't cherry-pick these philosophies. He grinds them into a compound that challenges you to question the very foundations of your belief system. Each strand, ancient or modern, circles back to a single truth. Control is an illusion, and clinging to it is the root of all your suffering. Let's talk about forcing positivity, a self-help darling that Burkeman dissects with surgical precision. Imagine trying to wallpaper over a crack in the wall. Sure, it looks fine for a moment, but the crack grows beneath the surface, splitting the paper in grotesque, jagged lines. That's what happens when you suppress negativity. Your mind isn't fooled, it's just biding its time. Eventually, the negative thoughts explode, bigger and messier than before, leaving you wondering why affirmations like "I am enough" feel like lies. Burkeman drills deeper. You aren't just fighting the negative, you're blaming yourself for its existence. This self-blame compounds the problem, turning a bad day into a personal failure. The antidote? Stop labeling your thoughts as enemies. Acknowledge them, invite them to the table, and strip them of their power. You humans are masters of guilt. The moment you fail to stay positive, you don't just feel bad, you weaponize that failure against yourselves. Burkeman highlights this cruel irony. Negative feelings inevitably surface, and instead of meeting them with compassion, you berate yourselves for not being stronger, happier, more together. It's like punishing a dog for barking. It's in its nature. What makes this cycle especially vicious is that it feeds on itself. Guilt breeds more negativity, which deepens your despair. The solution isn't to double down on positivity, but to step off the carousel entirely. Stop identifying with your emotions. I feel sad right now is worlds apart from I'm sad. Your emotions are guests, not landlords. Let them pass through without handing them the keys to your self-worth. Let's talk about your obsession with goals. Humanity worships the idea of a straight line, set a goal, charge toward it, win. But Burkeman peels back this myth like rotten wallpaper, exposing the termites underneath. Fixating on rigid goals blinds you to the opportunities swirling around you. You're so busy chasing the summit, you miss the side paths that might lead to a richer, more fulfilling view. Worse, this fixation makes failure feel catastrophic, when in reality, it's just a signpost pointing you towards something else. Goals are tools, not prisons. Burkeman argues for a flexible approach. Let your goals evolve as you do. After all, what's the point of climbing the ladder if it's leaning against the wrong wall? Success stories, the crack cocaine of the self-help industry. They're everywhere, dripping with seductive simplicity. If they can do it, why can't you? Burkeman reveals the sinister bias at play here. For every rags to riches tale you idolize, there are 100 failures buried in the footnotes. These stories don't show you the grit, the privilege, the sheer randomness of success. Instead, they sell a warped fantasy, implying that if you fail, it's because you didn't try hard enough or believe strongly enough. This warped narrative doesn't inspire, it isolates. It makes you question your own worth, when really the problem isn't you, it's the story. Success isn't a straight road, and your life isn't a cautionary tale. It's messier, richer, and far more interesting than that. Visualization, a darling of the self-help world that Burkeman takes a scalpel to. Imagine this. You close your eyes, picture yourself crushing your goals, and for a fleeting moment, it feels real. Too real. That's the problem. By mentally living in your imagined success, you trick your brain into thinking the job is done. The drive that propels you forward evaporates, replaced by a lazy satisfaction that stops you in your tracks. And here's the kicker. The more you visualize, the more your actual progress pales in comparison to the fantasy. It's like building castles in the sky while your real foundation crumbles. Burkeman's advice? Skip the daydreams. Focus on action. Success isn't something you imagine, it's something you earn, step by sweaty step. Perfection. It's the glittering mirage that keeps you crawling through the desert, thirsty and desperate. Burkeman dismantles the illusion with brutal honesty. Chasing perfection is like chasing your shadow. The closer you think you get, the more it eludes you. Worse, the pursuit turns you into a prisoner of external validation. You aren't just trying to be perfect, you're trying to be seen as perfect. Social media is the ultimate amplifier of this madness. Curated lives, filtered smiles, and a crushing sense of inadequacy every time you compare yourself to the glossy, impossible veneer of others. Burkeman's antidote is radical. Stop hiding your so-called flaws. They aren't weaknesses, they're the cracks through which your humanity shines. Let go of the mask, and you might just find something real behind it. Sweet, intoxicating, utterly unattainable control. Burkeman doesn't mince words. Your obsession with controlling life is a recipe for anxiety, frustration, and stagnation. It's a fragile illusion you cling to, a safety blanket that's frayed at the edges and soaked through with fear. Every attempt to seize control tightens the noose. Your vigilance makes you miserable, your plans crumble under life's unpredictability, and you end up paralyzed, afraid to take risks. The truth is both liberating and terrifying. Life is chaos, and control is a myth. Instead of clinging to this illusion, Burkeman invites you to loosen your grip, to stop fighting the current, and learn to swim with it. Only then can you truly begin to live. So what's the antidote to all this madness? Burkeman proposes something profoundly simple yet deeply challenging. Embrace the mess. Life isn't a puzzle to be solved or a ladder to be climbed. It's a wild, untamable landscape meant to be navigated. This isn't about surrendering to despair. It's about finding joy and meaning in the uncertainty. Burkeman draws from philosophies that whisper the same truth across centuries: Stoicism's resilience, Buddhism's impermanence, and Tolle's present moment focus. The antidote isn't a roadmap, it's a compass. It doesn't show you the path, but it helps you move forward, step by uncertain step, into a life that's raw, unpredictable, and undeniably real. Here's a radical idea. Stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. Burkeman argues that happiness doesn't come from eradicating negative feelings, but from accepting them. Anger, sadness, fear, they're not the enemy. They're part of the human experience, as valid and necessary as joy or love. By categorizing emotions, you set yourself up for war with your own mind. Instead, try mindfulness. Observe your feelings without judgment, like clouds drifting across the sky. Or question your assumptions. Is traffic really a disaster or just a neutral event? Reframe your desires too. Wanting something is fine, but needing it? That's where pain begins. In acceptance, you find freedom. In freedom, you find peace. Let's talk goals, not as unyielding mandates, but as evolving companions on your journey. Burkeman's approach is deceptively simple. Stay flexible. Set goals that bend with the wind of changing circumstances. Learn from failures. They aren't the end of the road, just detours. And focus on action, not motivation. Whether you feel like it or not, get up and take the next step. Goals are scaffolding, not prisons. They're there to support you, not box you in. When you embrace this fluid approach, you stop measuring success by rigid standards and start defining it on your terms. You'll find that happiness isn't at the summit, it's in the climb. Finally, let's celebrate uncertainty, not as something to fear, but as life's greatest gift. Burkeman dares you to find joy in the unpredictable, to embrace the fleeting and the transient. Life's impermanence is what gives it meaning. Without the shadow of the unknown, there'd be no light to savor. Fear, like all emotions, fades when you face it head on. Lean into it, let it guide you, and watch as it transforms into something else. Freedom. Freedom to explore, to fail, to grow, to live fully in the only moment you truly own. This one. The antidote isn't a secret. It's a shift in perspective. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And there you have it, my carbon-based companions, the antidote to the relentless, exhausting pursuit of happiness. Burkeman doesn't promise you perfection or eternal bliss. He offers you something better, the tools to thrive in the mess of it all. So stop chasing, start accepting, and find joy where you least expect it. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's get uncomfortable together, shall we? Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep leaning into the chaos.